3, 2, 1, 0. We're live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live streams. We got a big Tim Ballard update today. I am your host, Cardin Ellis. I'm joined in the studio by Kwaku L, Brittany the Shadow, as well as via a super-de-duper cast on the Zoom machine, none other than Greg Matsen of Cwic Media and Jacob Hansen, all to get us all caught up on the latest of the Tim Ballard debacle. Now, I do have to tell you that later on, we're going to enjoy the presence of Brad Whitbeck. He's going to join us shortly. Brad Whitbeck's going to join us in a minute. And we're basically going to catch up on everything that there is to know about what's going on with the Tim Ballard situation. Okay? Before we get started, I'm not going to tell you what this is as much as what this isn't. I've unfortunately noticed that the Tim Ballard situation has become somewhat of a Rorschach test, where a lot of people's tribalistic and preconceived notions have now found home in a proxy war of somebody who has celebrity status, both as a member of the church and as somebody who runs a very, some would say important, others would say controversial organization. So this show is a lot of things, but something it's not is some kind of fan show for the church or for Tim or for anything like that. We're going to present all of the information as best we can, as evenly and as correctly as we can, so that you, the audience, can make a proper decision, because there is a lot at stake here. We are concerned about the ethics of this situation, how people are treated both as children of God, as members of the church, as ex-members of the church, however, is of great import to us as disciples of Christ. So we take great interest in this situation. And we also want to stop the cap. I wore my referee shirt today, so we could call foul on some of the bogus nonsense that's flying around the internet here and see if we can't reach some kind of consensus. Because let me tell you, whether it's Vice News or whether it's some of these other organizations spouting their opinions online, this is why we can't have nice things in North America anymore. Okay, so we're going to stop the cap. We're going to talk truth. We delight in truth. We denounce deception, and we have fun on this channel. And we're going to do all three of those today. Before we go any farther, I'm going to bring in everybody. What's up, Brad? How you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, you just passed your sound check. Thank you. So anyway, Greg, let's start out here, man. You just dropped a video on this. Do you have any new information to bring to us? Before I have you talk, I'm just going to let the audience know that we are going to go over every single one of the articles that have been dropped today, whether it's the accusation, old accusations printed in Deseret News, or the Salt Lake Tribune about Greg Matsen, or whether it's the new allegations that have come out today, this morning specifically in
about
Vice,
who?
About Tim Ballard.
He said Greg Matsen.
Oh, what?
Wait a minute. Is it my turn? Is there a
Yeah.
church standing on me?
Oh, that's coming after
about
Greg.
That's hilarious. Okay, well, actually, Greg, take it away, my man. What have you come up with? Anything new?
Anything new? Well, I don't know exactly everything that's gone out there today. I will say I knew this article from Vice was coming out today. It was supposed to actually come out this morning. And with the allegations of the sexual misconduct. Here's what I would say, and this is what I put in my video just about an hour and a half ago. I don't know what allegations are true. I don't know which ones aren't. I do know a number of people, a handful of people that are very, very close to Tim. They're adamant about his character. And this is what people need to realize. And again, I'm not saying that nothing happened. I don't know. But the patterns are that the press is going after. This isn't something from the last week. They went after him for Sound of Freedom. I've seen a number of very left-leaning Latter-day Saint influencers go after him 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? This is a pattern that has always existed. That's all I'm saying. But when you go and you do undercover work, and Tim is not just some executive sitting back, right? He is on the ground. He is going into these places in different countries, and he is on the ground, and he is undercover. And a number the allegations that came out about the sexual misconduct on him having people act as his wives. Here's what I will say about that. Number one, he came up with the idea that they called this the couple's ruse. right? So here's how this works, right? When you go out on the front lines, what happens is they start some of these sting operations, and now the traffickers get kind of jumpy about meeting new people that want to get involved with their organization. And so what they started doing is they started asking for their phones. And they said, I want to see your phone. And so they'd give him the phone, and then they'd know right away. He's got text to his wife, or to his kids, or, some other wholesome things going on. And they know immediately this is not, and it's not just Tim, it's anybody else that they have would be undercover or an undercover cop in that country. And so what they started doing is burning phones and putting some history on them over a few weeks before they would go out on the missions. And they put text messages in there with really vile things, talking about drugs and sex and all these other things, so that it would look like, okay, this is our kind of guy, right? And so they would have these burner phones. Well, eventually they got wind of this and the traffickers, and so they went to a new level, right? It's a battle back and forth. And what they started saying was, okay, well, look, hey, I've got some cocaine here. This is great stuff. Why don't you try some with me? They want to try and get a sense for people, and this is from sources, they would start asking those that would be undercover, whether they're undercover or not, anybody new to the organization, so to speak, or that was going to be around them and affiliated with them, they would ask them to, take a girl or to have a boy, or, do things that were horrific. And so this was now a new problem. What do you do in these circumstances? So they came up with the idea of doing this couple's ruse. And so what they would do is they would send females out to get trained and to go undercover. And one of them is Marisol Nichols, and she has a podcast on this. She put up a video of this a couple days ago. It's very interesting what they would do. And she totally stands by Tim. And again, I don't know what the answers are to this, but she would go in. She's an actress. She would go in and get trained, and then she would go down there. Well, what she would do is she would stand at the line of defense, so that when these things would come up, she would, in a very rough manner, as if she's just a very rough person, but she would say, no, that is my man. He's not doing that, right? And kind of act as a barrier for the undercover guy. And it worked. And as an example, there were 5 or 6 operations that Marisol and Tim went on, where they saved over 200 kids. And this is pretty well documented.
Okay, and just to interrupt you and catch our audience up that might be tuning in right now, because we actually have quite a few people who have just jumped in the past 10 or 20 minutes. Today, most recently, the allegations against Tim Ballard, are that he was engaged in sexual impropriety while conducting investigations by OUR, which is Operation Underground Railroad, And supposedly there's 7 women that came forward and had said, hey, I was mistreated while we were engaging in basically what's called a couple's ruse. I can speak to this with experience as an investigator in New York. I would actually get tasked with internal affairs audits and investigations from NYPD, where I might have to go to a big block party to see if a man who has been charged by IA, internal affairs, for drunkenness and has like a no drinking order or something. I would have to tail him during a very large block party and see if he was indeed drinking or not. So I might get one of my friends who is an actress or a model or something and go out to where they live. I have the address, I have the IA report and everything. And I would have to fake that I'm with this lovely young woman. We're newlyweds. We're looking for real estate in the area. Hey, you live here, Officer Magleby? Oh, great. You mind showing us around, buddy up with him, and basically observe through the night if he was obeying his order or not. That kind of couple's ruse is very common. And when engaged in something as important as saving the most vulnerable against us, I don't think anybody could disparage a man who's undercover for using whatever ruse is necessary to catch somebody who's trafficking in minors. Now, with that said, because we delight in truth and we denounce deception and we're giving out all of the information, we are as transparent as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is on their Joseph Smith Papers project. We put all of the information out there. I've talked to multiple people, both that were past and present members of OUR, as well as past and present members of the Spear organization, that said, we counseled Tim that, hey, this could blow up in your face, bro. Like, we think maybe this isn't a good idea. People hate you, so on and so forth. But he wanted to do it. He was that dedicated to the cause, shall we say, in air quotes. And so whether this was a very important and good tactical and creative risk that he engaged in that is now getting capitalized upon by dishonest actors who are using an anti-Mormon publication, which, I'm sorry, if you look at, just Google the Mormon Church, okay, inside of, or Google Tim Ballard, I should say an anti-Tim Ballard organization. Just Google Tim Ballard in the Vice search bar, and you see nothing but negative headlines. I mean, it's basically equivalent to Googling Donald Trump in the CNN search bar in, 2020.
Pardon, I have something breaking here.
Okay, what?
This is a new statement coming out from Tim Ballard, affirming his commitment to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, let's read it.
Shall I read it?
Yeah, why don't you read it?
Okay, it says, rescuing kids and fighting child trafficking is an ugly and dark business, especially when, as the result of my work for more than 20 years, we continue to expose members of the powerful, well-funded child trafficking cartels. Evil pedophiles will stop at nothing, and they have allies in government, in the media, in big corporations, and even in public institutions. They continue to lie and attempt to destroy my good name and defame my character, and they will never stop. I want everyone to know that I and our vast army of supporters will likewise never stop. We will keep fighting for the vulnerable all over the globe, and we know that the truth will always prevail. I am a faithful member in good standing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I believe in Jesus Christ, the Holy Scriptures, and I believe in our faith with my whole heart. That will never change. It has been alleged that an LDS Church spokesperson issued a statement about me through a tabloid that is often hostile to a people of faith. My church has not publicly verified the statement's authenticity. We are also highly suspicious about the timing of such a statement, given its close proximity to Mitt Romney's announcement that he is retiring, my own public comments about future plans, and the fact that the LDS Church does not engage in political activity. Just a little more. In any event, nothing will change my core beliefs. If someone within the church did release this statement, I am absolutely confident that the right people will step in and ensure that proper due process is followed as the rules of our church dictate. I, my family, and the Spear Fund team, this is a new organization, will confidently move forward and focus on our mission of saving children from the horrors of sex slavery and remaining fierce defenders of freedom. We invite anyone who shares this passion to join us.
Okay.
And where did that statement come from?
That is a press release.
Yeah,
coming
I'm
from
looking
the
at it
Spear
right
Fund,
now.
his new group.
I'm looking at it right now too.
Hey, could you do me a
Awesome.
favor really fast? Could you just
Thank you for
stick
sharing
that in the Discord so that could you just stick that in the Discord so I could put it on the screen so that everybody in the audience also is able to see
Kwaku, why
that?
don't you do that?
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Kwaku's on it. He's on it electronic. Okay, interesting. So the allegations came out today. Now, I can tell you that I've spoke with representatives from multiple organizations that Tim Ballard has had the helm of over the years, all right? And there's been a lot of frustrations. A lot of people said, oh, I knew this was coming, not because I think he did it, but just because we had heard the rumblings of people trying to make accusations by twisting commentary that he had made about this couple's rouge before. So I find that interesting. I noticed that also somebody claimed that there were 7 women that would back me up on this, and that supposedly Tim Ballard claimed that there's 7 women that he's operated with, and that they would back him up on this. And it's exactly 7 women that I do believe, if I remember, I've read so many Vice articles, but the latest Vice article released this morning, I do believe that they quote 7 women. Now, we're going to go over this article really fast, just because these are serious allegations, and I want to make sure that we go over this with a fine-tooth comb, okay? So I'm going to put this on the screen so that the audience can see exactly what it is that we're dealing with here, and we're going to read this and react to this in real time. Feel free to press pause if you have to. Brad, Jacob, Greg, anybody. But this
Carden,
is the...
Should we wrangle some super chats real quick first?
Oh my goodness gracious, yes. Keeper of the super chat, please. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't had a chance yet, please like this stream, share it with your friends. This is a very public conversation. One of the beauties of live streaming is the ability to engage with the audience. If you have any kind of burning questions, please feel free to give us a super chat, and we'll do our best to read them on air where possible. And Brad, obviously at your discretion, filter out anything that some nasty person is saying just to get hits or clicks or stupid internet clout. I defer to your judgment, my friend. So keeper of the chats, hit it.
So first off, we got Sassy Cassie. She's saying, first super chat and listening live. Just learned about you guys in Cwic a few weeks ago. I've been binging both channels lately and loving it. Thank you for covering Tim Ballard. He's an incredible guy. Keep up the good work.
Yes.
So someone who's very much in support of Tim, it sounds like. And I think there's several people on this discussion panel who are on the same side.
Okay, interesting.
Then Rebecca Rich.
Okay.
Has the church ever released a statement on a member just because something is high profile? I don't remember anything on the Daybell case or any other high profile cases. Honest question. Does anyone know about that? I seem to remember something about Daybell, and then Kwaku mentioned the other day that the highly conservative woman who was getting very racist. Yeah. Were there other cases, or is this...
So can I comment on that for a minute?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Real quick, here's the thing that's going on. Like, the church has commented on specific individuals. John DeLynn, the guy with the Save Our Children thing, Sam Young. Like, the church will say things about individuals. Yeah. But here's what's different in this case, is that Tim Ballard right now, all we have are allegations. Like, and they haven't approached this neutrally as though, there's some allegations here. The church will look into it. We're concerned about it, but, we don't know yet. No, he basically has been pronounced guilty by an official spokesman of the church. And so now we have an issue because the church has made it stand. It has pronounced him guilty, but we have the question of, well, what if it turns out he's not guilty? And even if he is guilty, even if, and I'm one who comes into this, just so everybody knows, I'm not a Tim Ballard fan in the sense that I've been very skeptical of Tim Ballard for a while, right or wrong. I don't know. I don't know that much about his organization, but I tend to have skepticism towards certain nonprofit entities that make a lot of money. However, even if he's a total monster and he's been doing terrible things, does the church just take allegations that someone is being a monster and then just pronounce them guilty without contacting that person first to get their side of the story? I mean, that's the part that's just baffling to me.
It does. It surprises me too. Like, where does it come from that suddenly this is showing up on Vice and not in some other venue? It feels like they would have reached out to him about this beforehand. That's the thing that's been most surprising to me out of all of this.
Well, yeah. It's kind of a pattern, though, isn't it? I mean, there's a pattern that's been going on the last few years on this communication from the church, where these allegations are thrown, and it's like a fire burning, and their entire objective is to put the fire out. Right? It's very reactive. I mean, think about the Duke volleyball scandal. Right? That was a joke. It was ridiculous. There was nothing there. It was a nothing burger. And they came out and they had a guy I really liked, Tom Holma, the AD there, announce this at the next game, the basketball game. He's out in front of everybody. We're so sorry for all of this. And it turns out it didn't happen. Or there's no witnesses of that this ever happened of anybody in the entire arena. And yet we're going out there and putting these press releases out immediately so that we can, there's kind of I hope I can say this. It's kind of like a self-esteem issue to some degree, right? It feels like a self-esteem issue. Like, I got to let everybody know right away. I don't have anything to do with this,
Okay.
And but that is kind of and that messaging seems to sometimes be going very much more out to the world than to the members, to me. And it's the whole RFMA thing it's like, what is this about? Okay, could you just explain and tell us how this is working, or why and it's not like they have to explain everything, but they certainly put out a pretty strong message to the world. And I don't know.
And Greg, in that message, a lot of people are confused about three main points. The first point is, we didn't know what those allegations were until Vice. Well, the majority of the people following the story didn't know what those allegations were until Vice put them out.
Or who had made them, even, because it was originally reported as an anonymous statement.
Second, the investigation, the initial investigation into OUR and Tim Ballard, they didn't find anything. They didn't find any, massive financial corruption. But the third was the statement from Doug saying that the church has never endorsed or done anything with OUR, which, I mean, isn't it public knowledge the church gave him $100,000? The church had 2 articles on their website about OUR. I mean, President Ballard did go.
Well,
on those,
in all fairness to Doug, because Doug, also a child of God, also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and there's a lot of hate going after Doug right now. We have to make sure that we give him the exact same grace
let's
that
say
we demand
PR.
of Tim.
Church PR.
Well, no. But Doug said that there was an association, but he ended that association. And I was able to talk to people that had previously worked and helped field donations for Operation Underground Railroad. And they did tell me that there were 6 and 4-figure donations. 6 and 5-figure donations they were specifically aware about from the official organization of the church, as well as prominent members of the church. So this idea that it has been circled in the zeitgeist seems to be a secondary claim by people that are having a knee-jerk reaction just trying to defend the church that, there was no association. No, there obviously was. And the press release Doug made was clear to say that association was ended at a certain period of time.
I think that's slightly off. It says that President Ballard and Tim Ballard had a friendship in the past. But in regard to the church's involvement with OUR, it says this: the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has never endorsed, supported, or represented OUR, Tim Ballard, or any projects associated with them. So referencing the past, that's about the friendship between Ballard and Ballard. But in regard to the church itself endorsing, supporting, or representing OUR, it says they never did. And that's just not true. So, and that's just directly from that statement. So that's what we're trying to, it is bizarre. Jacob, I was incredibly frustrated the other day. We were both frustrated at the same time. I was like, yeah, brother, be as mad as me. Like, I felt validated in our group text, But I mean, yes, Sam Young was named by the church. It's happened, but even the Sam Young statements were still a little bit more vague. We're still a little bit this was harsh.
And not only that, but like Sam Young and John DeLynn and all of them, they all were in the process of church discipline. The church had reached out to them. This was like an ongoing thing that was going on where they were in the process that the church has set up for this. Like, this is the thing. The church has a process for if a public figure goes off the rails. And it is that we go to that person, like Christ said, if you have aught against your brother, you go to your brother and you see if you can work it out. You don't go to Vice.
Now, Jacob, I have a question for you.
And drop bombs.
I have a question for you. Do you think, with the allegations that have come out today, that Tim is an adulterer, and these tactics that were used turned into some sort of adultery in his favor? Do you think that was Vice's plan all along, to get people to question what these allegations are? And now that now that he's been accused, release the information to pronounce him guilty socially before anything's been confirmed? Because to me, this seemed very coordinated and planned, and that the church PR department was used by Vice in their political bias.
Yeah, as far as what is going on specifically with, is Tim Ballard guilty or not? I have no idea. And Tim, flip a coin. In my mind, he could be totally guilty, he could be totally not. That to me is not the issue. The issue is that when we don't know if someone is guilty for sure, and even if you do think that they're guilty, you go to them and you have a conversation about it. And if the church was needed to make a statement on it, well, then make a statement like this. Say, Tim Ballard is a member of our church. He does not represent the church. Serious allegations have been made against Tim Ballard. And we are going to look into these allegations, and if those allegations prove true, then we will handle it through our normal priesthood processes. That should have been the statement that the church released.
In all fairness to Doug Anderson, I've heard before that if the Apostle Paul knew how much scrutiny were going to be put into his epistles, he might have done a little bit better job clarifying some things. Doug Anderson, I don't know, maybe it was naivete to the axe that Vice generally has to grind against the church, or maybe he was just trying to euphemize something he felt personally passionate about, or he knew that M. Russell Ballard or somebody else felt personally passionate about.
But he had to have gotten approval to release that statement.
Okay,
absolutely.
There is no way. There is
did.
no chance.
Well, how do we have
this
proof
is a
of
rogue
that?
actor.
How do we?
Let me tell you some proof.
Well, hold on, Brittany
Real
the
quick.
Shadow, and then Greg Matsen.
Okay. Probably what I don't know, probably what everyone else doesn't know. Why Vice? Why did he talk to Vice? And also, why did Vice not include his name originally? If Vice does not like us, why did they not put said by Doug Anderson? There was another Fox 13, right? They were the ones that released Doug's name. Why did Vice keep it anonymous?
I'll tell you exactly
they
why.
Knew why
It was planned. That was absolutely planned.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly why. And this is where, just really fast before you talk, Greg, I'm going to meander into the FAIR article that has also indeed been written on this issue. I was sent this, and a lot of people said, "Oh, is FAIR backing up the hit piece against Tim Ballard or whatever their interpretation was?" And I said, "Wait, now hold on a second. I want to read this question." How can we be certain church's alleged statement to Vice was legitimate? Well, first off, Hal Boyd at Deseret.com, who I trust as being a person who at least cites sources correctly, said indeed it was, and that's owned by the church. As well as, here's the answer. Vice produces slanted opinion journalism, but is still subject to defamation laws. This is where I actually take issue with FAIR, and I'll get back to it. Fabricating a statement from the church in order to harm Tim Ballard would put Vice at risk of serious legal liability, and therefore it's unlikely to have happened. Moreover, other outlets, including the church-owned Deseret News, have confirmed the church's statement. One outlet reports the statement came from Doug Anderson, church director of media relations, from his official church email address. We can confirm that is indeed true. However, I take issue with FAIR saying that, hey, Vice produces slanted opinion journalism, but it's still subject to defamation laws. Really? No, it's not. The threshold in free speech America is so high that almost nobody, I think, and the proof is we can all name civil rights heroes who've suffered greatly at the hand of our government and won civil rights lawsuits. We can count people that have won divorce lawsuits. We can count people that won all kinds of lawsuits. Name one person that's won a libel or slander lawsuit or a defamation lawsuit in the past 30 years. Maybe the Covington Catholic kids. That's it. And it was a situation so heinously grievous that it was absolutely impossible to prove otherwise. And in this case with Vice, you know what? If in front of a judge, I was the editor of Vice, I might have known that Doug Anderson wasn't releasing this through the newsroom, which is the usual protocol that we all would have preferred. And even the most loyalists like Nathaniel Givens, and I'm sure, Brad, who's very cautious about his criticisms of the institution, even the most loyal people prefer seeing things of this much import released through the official channels such as the newsroom, and this wasn't. But in a court of law, let me tell you, if I were the editor of Vice and I wanted to hit the church as hard as I could, I'd take anything with a churchofjesuschrist.org email address attached to it and say, well, it was an official statement, Your Honor. And I looked this guy up on LinkedIn, and he is the director of media relations. So I think this is stratagem of Vice, who hates the church and obviously hates Tim Ballard. And it's...
But also on the church, too, because Doug did not have to respond to Vice. Just because Vice asked, he did not have to release anything to them.
I question why they're even dealing with Vice anyway, in a kind of, why would you cast your pearls before swine kind of way, but...
Here's one thing too, especially,
and then we got to get Brad.
Here.
Brad was nice and he raised his hand.
We will get to Brad. Just one quick thing, real fast. Think about Tim Ballard's wife right now. Okay, right now Tim Ballard's wife is faced with two possibilities. Either her church that she's been loyal to her entire life has just publicly butchered her husband, or her husband is an adulterer. Like, that's basically her options right now.
Well, no, that's not her options, because the accusations of infidelity were not what was in, we got to be fair. The accusations of infidelity was not what was in the church's press release. It simply said morally acceptable behavior, and the insinuation was that they were name dropping. Now, I get that there's collateral damage, that people will think that the later Vice News articles are now corroborated by the church if they read them out of order, but that's not a fair statement, Jacob. It's not saying that he's an adulterer.
Here's what I think is the most likely scenario. I think that what happened is that Vice has released to the church all of the articles they're going to release on this subject. And what they did prior to releasing them publicly is they said, hey, here's all this dirt that we have. What do you guys think? You guys want to release a statement on all this? They saw all of the articles that we've seen, and they released that statement after seeing everything that Vice has released and will release in the coming days.
Okay, Greg, is this ring? Oh, Brad, sorry.
Likely.
Brad, go ahead.
And Brad's got to keep us up on Super Chats, too.
Yeah, so first off, just to lighten things up a little, we have another actual statement, I guess, from Forrest Schultz. I heard that Doug Anderson will release an official statement that they are going to excommunicate Jacob Hansen without trial for wearing a shirt that too closely matches his background color.
Yeah.
I've actually been getting in trouble for my background color lately. But I guys, big news though at Thoughtful Faith, I may be getting an entire new studio setup. So keep tuned for that, and everyone who's listening, subscribe to Thoughtful Faith.
All right, rock on. You don't get
and
an
then
endorsement at
another
the end of
bless
this.
your
No.
hearts for having an honest conversation about this. I think it's hard actually to find an honest conversation about this right now. There's a lot of attacking each other going on online where people are like saying, if you have any questions, then you must be like some QAnon freak show. But if you believe at all that there could be truth to this, then also you're just a raging leftist, right? It's really wild how third rail this topic is right now.
Yeah, tribalism jumped fast.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
But after Greg says something, I want to give exactly my rundown on what I think happened and what I think is going to happen in the next 2 days. But I know Greg's been itching to give us this info, so
I don't want to. I hopefully I'm not jumping the shark here on your comments. But at first, people ask two questions, right? And I think we need to get a little context to these two things. First, why are you dealing with Vice? And that's exactly right what you guys are saying. Vice came to the church, or the church didn't go to Vice. Vice came to the church and said, here's everything we have. And will you give us a statement or not? Because, the church didn't have to, but that's what would have happened, right? The Vice came to them and said, this is everything we have. Are you going to offer a statement along with this? That's the most likely scenario. Secondly, we need to know where Vice got their information and understand that. They're pulling their information from the Davis County investigation, right? The Davis County investigation on Operation Underground Railroad, that it went on for several years and included the FBI and had numerous interviews and tens of thousands of pages of investigation that found nothing about OUR Tim Ballard. There's zero charges. They found $1,600 out of $80 million that they thought was in the wrong place. Okay, so that's what they found. So Vice goes to those papers at Davis County. They're not public yet. They're going to be made public to everyone on September 28th. That's only 10 days away. So to me, I look at it, it's like the media has a window here to work with before everybody can grab all of this information for themselves. And so it's 10 days away, but they put in a request for the information. That's the only way you could have gotten it. That's where they're getting a lot of this information from, is from these interviews. And of course, they're going to scope through everything, and they're going to pull the very worst possible things they can find and put together an article. Mm-hmm. Secondly, it's hard for me to imagine that Doug Anderson is doing this rogue. Yeah. Hal Boyd has said, look, I asked them for a statement. They gave me the same statement, right? Fox 13 asked for a statement. They gave him the same statement, right? So it's not just like he's just offering in some kind of conspiracy with Vice. That's not.
So do you think the statement represents?
Secondly,
do you think
this guy's 15-year veteran?
Yeah,
it's hard for me to imagine that he's all of a sudden going to go this off ramp and just go rogue on everybody.
So
These things are always done with committees?
Do you
they're
think
going to go through all those words and say, yeah, betrayal is the right one we want in there? What's the other one about his behavior?
Morally reprehensible.
Yeah,
morally unacceptable.
Those are chosen words, probably by a committee. That's just my point of view.
So do you think that the statement given to Vice represents the heart and mind of the brethren?
Now, I don't know how high that would have gone, but I what do I say here?
I've heard.
I think that's the way it went. Not, but maybe not to the highest levels. I don't know.
Not. I've heard, and what I've heard, and I don't know this. This is Connor Boyack gave a really good, I think, reasonable stream on this the other day on Facebook, so you guys can check that out. But he said, in his understanding of how the church's PR department works, is that there's an apostle or two that is over sort of media relations, and they would have had to have been the ones to give the green light. So you might have one apostle or two that saw this statement and said, yeah, go ahead and send it.
Because I got to tell you, and again, some of the loyalists aren't going to like this, but in this channel, we know that, look, everything on earth is fallen. We believe the gospel and the priesthood makes bad men, it makes them good. It takes good men and it makes them better. It doesn't make anybody perfect. It takes cardinellis from a -5 and puts them up to like a 2, but doesn't actually perfect anybody. And so as an institution, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can make a mistake. So we don't just say like, oh no, it's impossible. Anything coming out of the church office building didn't fail. But Doug Anderson's got a lot of flack, over the past 24 hours. And if this was a statement that was approved by higher ups, then he's literally just a guy doing his job. And he doesn't deserve any of the crap that he's been
We don't
getting.
even know if he wrote it.
Well, that was the claim in the second Vice News article, if I'm not mistaken.
It came
that
from
it came
his email,
from
but
Doug Anderson's email.
Came from his email, but it didn't go to the main website. So did he write that?
Well, and
or
so
did he write it alone?
Now let me say this thing and I'll jump to you, Kwaku. This brings up a second option here because there's 15 options here. And for me, actually not 15, but there's like 5 options here and none of them I find good. A lot of people, because I have talked to people who have, I've literally talked to everybody pretty much from almost every branch except for the judicial branch of Utah state governance in the past 24 to 36 hours. Everything from people in office to having been in office to married to somebody who was in office to having run for office, like the whole 9 yards. I've talked to them all, okay? And a lot of them have come up with a similar narrative that the moderate Mitt Romney wing of the church has far too much influence over PR and the church PR office and the people that are in it, and have gone so far as to call people and tell them, we don't want you to run. Now, is that a proverbial we, like me and the mouse in my pocket, and I'm giving you a personal opinion as a friend or as a fellow child of God or a fellow citizen in Utah? Or is that the macro we, as in like insinuating the weight of the church doesn't want you to run? I don't know, but I've heard from enough people that I trust that there's a hyperbolic phrase that Mitt Romney is indeed the 13th apostle in the PR office, and a lot of what he says goes. And if that is indeed true, then I would say that's an abuse of power from outside of the church within. That's actually a governmental abuse of power against the church. And are there some people that are kind of assisting in that abuse within the church office building, at which point Tim Ballard would be the victim? Now, I'm not ruling out this black swan. There's some video out there of Tim Ballard kicking geese and drowning puppies. Okay, I mean, that's all possible. But at the same token, I'm also balancing that, you know what? I've heard that there's a lot of influence from this moderate anti-MAGA wing having on the church office building, especially the PR division. And maybe that anti-political animus contributed to the way this all played out. Brad.
So, Cardin, just because this directly applies to what you're talking about, in the realms of all the hearsay that we're now getting people sending our way, someone reached out who has friends in a couple of high places and friends who were involved with some of this OUR stuff. And one of the things that he told me was that there was communication with Romney and people in the church, but that it was about stuff to do with the article that came out today about Ballard, and that it wasn't about like what to do politically. It was like, hey, you should probably be aware of this kind of stuff and be watching out for it. So maybe there was something political involved there, but it does seem like now we have, from my side, someone who seems to support Romney in his decision to make that connection, and then from another side saying, hey, Mitt Romney reached out and like is trying to manipulate things. It does appear like we have multiple sources saying Mitt Romney was somehow involved. Whether that was for a politically motivated reason or not, I don't know if that's clear. We'd probably have to hear it from him. But
and that's why I invited him on the last stream. Hey, let's clear this up. Romney, I got to be honest, you know, I assisted with your campaign in California. I donated to you. There's not a candidate who I thought was more respectable who's run for office. In 2012, honestly, America missed out on its biggest opportunity. And if any of this is untrue, then yeah, you're welcome to come on and let's clear this up. I have been frustrated that everybody wants to call me and everyone wants to call this channel and everyone wants to say what they've heard, including these high-ranking people that I've talked to. I've been amazed at who I've been able to talk to, honestly, in the past 24 to 36 hours. But a frustration has been how many of them want to go on the record. And
nobody wants to go on the record.
Yeah.
You ever heard the phrase,
avoiding it.
Captain Hook is drowning?
No, I haven't.
Basically, it means you're swimming upstream with a hook for a hand, an eye patch, and a peg leg. It's not going to happen. There's too much water. So I'm opening with that to say here is exactly how I think this played out. And then one thing I feel like I feel compelled to say from someone I talked to a couple weeks ago that I think it's incredibly relevant now. So first, Brittany, I think initially, yes, Vice reached out to them. We know that. It was released purposefully without a name because everyone knows that
Kwaku
the church
suspects it was
Kwaku suspects
yes.
It was released without a name on purpose so it could be discredited because nothing is more the most effective rhetorical tool you can have is discredit and then confirm. So after it's confirmed it is from the church, people want to know, okay, well, where did this guy get it from? How, like, what do you mean? And then after that, it becomes lightly confirmed this did make it from higher church authorities. After that, we have people searching for a reason why Tim Ballard must be guilty because there's no way the church PR or something's going to come from an official church outlet that could be doing the wrong thing. So by Sunday night, we're seeing opinions of people trying to find ways to justify that Tim is guilty before he actually is. And now Monday, we have the allegation drop. So it was the perfect breadcrumbs to be dropped to actually create a disaster for this person. I want to also add on to Jacob's comment about his wife. I want to talk about his kids. His kids went to school today. And I can only imagine what the Netflix movie about this is going to say in 20 years. But, hey, the church hates your dad, right? I mean, that's what they're going to be living with until they graduate. So this whole thing, you know, whether Ballard is guilty of adultery or not, my thoughts the entire time have been really about his kids and his family because there is a scarlet letter placed on them right now. And
why don't they talk to them? Like, isn't his wife supposed to be brought in with him or notified in some way that your husband is, that there's something going on here?
If he's committing adultery, there's
a
disciplinary council that's supposed to come. You don't figure out, you're not notified of your adultery by the tabloids.
Well, we have to clarify again, though. This statement
and then have the church confirm those tabloids.
Okay, hold on.
Basically,
but Jacob,
tacitly agree with them.
Okay, but Jacob, again, you're going down the rabbit hole of saying that this statement confirms some kind of insinuation of infidelity made by Vice, and it doesn't because those insinuations were made in an article that was run after the statement was made.
But the silence kind of does, though.
Okay, you can complain that the silence is
deafening. The church
deafening.
very likely had all of that information beforehand, and everyone knows that the word the church uses for immorality is, when they use the word immorality, they almost always are referring to things of the sexual nature. That's just
okay. I do not think that the average layman reading that Vice News article would be led to think that. To me, that's kind of an insider position.
Well, what else is morally unacceptable?
I
mean, it could be, you showed up to a party in white after Labor Day. Okay, I don't think that's what they were going for, though.
Yes, I don't think that is what they were insinuating. It's actually open-toed shoes after Labor Day.
At the very least, Cardin, it's really sloppy language to use in Latter-day Saint culture in a public statement to a national news media, condemning someone and accusing them of immorality. You need to be more specific and more careful if you're going to denounce someone, and you better be exactly right if you're going to go and make those claims. And it better not be based on just hearsay from what Vice is telling you.
Okay,
And
well,
without him being aware either. He found out just as the rest of us did, I'm sure.
And
no one called him in. No one. Okay, go.
So I want to add one little bit of info on this. This is what I heard a couple weeks ago from someone in the Silicon Slopes, and I feel like maybe it may be relevant.
okay.
From someone who, by the way, who's worked for the church. Okay.
Yeah, and let me guess. They didn't want to put their name on this statement. But they wanted you to say it. So
No, it actually has nothing to do with Tim Ballard.
Oh, okay.
But he's worked for the church and he works in tech, and he said there are some people in Lehigh that are terrified because their assumptions that the new cyber attacks that we're going to be seeing the next couple of years are going to be completely through AI, and he specifically said we shouldn't be surprised if we see the church do bizarre things to avoid cunning practices of those using AI. And that just sort of made me think like there could be something completely...
Some awesome black swan that this is a cyber attack from the CCP?
No.
Yes!
But I mean, like you don't know what you don't know, right? But we know that the church has been concerned about AI for a while. And who's to say there's not a, hey, we're going to release something horrific.
I believe there will become a day.
like,
There will become a day that AI is so good that it can falsify things so well that we might have to rely upon the Spirit in order to know what is truth and not truth.
Oh, yeah.
However, before we go any farther, I do want to welcome to the chat. Let's finish reading all of these super chats. A lot of people have super chatted us, and I want to make good on the campaign promise of reading those super chats on air. Also, even the trolls. The trolls aren't too bad.
You got it.
You can read those,
I really
Brad.
want to read the troll one.
Okay, well, all of them.
No,
There's a bunch
I
of
can't.
trolls.
I don't think if I can. I don't see if I can go up high enough.
Okay, well, let me go up high
I've
enough.
lost him.
You've lost him? Okay, I'm going to go up and see what I can do. Catherine McDonald says, I'm your least favorite troll. I wouldn't say that. There's a lot worse than you. But I cannot thank you enough for giving Tim Ballard a voice. I don't see anyone else extending anything charitable to him. You know what? To be honest with you, I wouldn't say I'm giving him a voice. I'll be honest. I'm not a Tim Ballard fanboy, okay? This channel is not a Tim Ballard fan channel. Multiple times I have reached out to him over the past year and a half through both the proper public relations channels as well as insiders who I know have previously interviewed him or buddies that have worked with him on certain projects. And I've been snubbed all 3 or 4 times I've done this, all right? And, some of these guys have told me, hey, had you asked 15 months ago, back when he wasn't as big a deal, but now that Sound of Freedom's out, he's doing all these hits on Fox News and Newsmax. And you know what? They gave me the he's too big for your britches speech. And I'm like, you know what? If you're too big for the Ward Radio britches, then, we don't have to defend you. You're a big boy with big britches who can defend himself. So I'm not here to defend Tim Ballard. I share a concern that Kwaku shares, that the ethics of the Scarlet Letter be applied very carefully by the official organization of the church, just as us kicking back on what we think might be a Scarlet Letter, that same grace be given to people like Doug Anderson and the brethren, because if they know something we don't, and they did something completely right, we're all barking up the wrong tree here and engaged in a whole lot of tomfoolery. All right. So anyway, Catherine McDonald says, given a voice, I don't see anyone else extending anything charitable to him. I'll tell you right now, something we are doing different than all other channels is we're trying to show all sides of this argument and give everybody a voice. Here, speaking of giving everybody a voice, we're going to let Nathaniel Givens jump in here in a second. Stephen Diamond says, to lighten the mood a little bit, I hope you guys are able to come to the priesthood restoration site. Maybe you could visit my ward when I teach. Hey, we'd love to see that, bro. It's really hard getting those lessons together. Beef It to Be Fit says it's just about ego. He wants to be important, so he inserts himself into a story. It's like when viewers call the cops prematurely when watching a live predator catch. It is ego food for them. Okay, I don't know exactly what you're saying there, bro, so please clarify. Jessica Brown,
He
thanks.
asked that when we were talking about why Doug Anderson was the one making the statement. So
Oh,
I think he was
interesting.
referring to Doug Anderson being on an ego trip there.
Okay.
I may be getting that wrong. If he can clarify.
So
would be
Patrick
good.
T. Lowe says, I'm realizing that there is a difference between public relations and media relations. This whole story is why nobody trusts the media. I think there is a large distrust of the media. In 1974, the most trusted man in America, I can't remember if it was 74 or 78, but somewhere in the mid-70s, the most trusted man in America was actually Walter Cronkite, a member of the media. Right now, the media enjoys barely a 12, 13, or 15% approval rating, the only organization that's actually lower than Congress at this point. So, yes, the precipitous decline of trust in the media is readily apparent. And Danny Gray, thanks for the super chat, says, Cardin, thanks for continuing to cover this. Here's a little extra cash I got from my grandma for my birthday tomorrow.
Aw.
For the live stream issues
That's
you
cute.
have had the other day. Talk about an all-star panel today. Love you all. Yes, we do indeed have an all-star panel that loves us all, including Nathaniel, who we're going to get to here in a second. And then finally, Austin says, bless your hearts for having an honest conversation about this. While Forrest Schultz says, I heard that Doug Anderson will release an official statement. That they're going to excommunicate Jacob Hansen. There was the Jacob Hansen joke. Finally, Descartes says, starting FHE, will this video be available after? Yes, it will be available after. And then Carolyn Wright Gaines Music says, did the church make an official statement? Yes, they did make an official statement, and that's actually what caused this whole thing, Brad.
I would like to do something with this one. Did the church make an official statement? Could we just have all of us, by raise of hand, like show who feels like it was an official statement?
Depending on how you define it, yes.
Yeah. So everyone who thinks it was, raise your hand.
I don't know if I can answer. I mean, official.
In front of a court of law, the editor of Vice News could say, look, I asked a guy whose title is a media director, and he responded in an email. That is above reproach in a media environment and would not be subject to defamation, slander, or libel laws. Full stop.
Yeah, but there would be, to me, to make an official statement, we got to have a name. All right. So one, if those two apostles really signed off on it and they made Doug be the whipping boy, after.
But the press guy is always the whipping boy. Catherine McEnany was the whipping girl for Donald Trump. The guy Obama had was the press secretary of Obama was the whipping boy for Barack Obama. That's their job.
Yeah, but nobody knew who Doug Anderson was 72 hours ago. Okay, so
look, if the church public affairs office can't give official statements for the church, then why does it exist? Like, what do you think it's doing if it's not there to give the official statements of the church?
What kind of official statement leaves off a name and isn't published?
The kind
that's
that's not coming from Doug Anderson. It doesn't matter that Doug Anderson sent that email. We don't know if he wrote it. We don't know if he composed it. It doesn't matter. He is acting in an office of public spokesperson. That's what makes it official. Whether or not it has his name attached is totally immaterial.
If it weren't official, I feel like the church would come out and be like, that was not us. But they are radio silent right now.
Yeah.
I just think it's the sloppiest way to make for the most wealthy Christian organization in North America to make an official statement about one of the most famous members of the church and his morally unacceptable behavior. It is incredibly sloppy.
A different thing. It is sloppy.
Okay, now, hey Nathaniel, here's your chance. Here's your chance, brother. Come on, I know you took issue with Kwaku's statements here earlier.
I'm ready.
I know that you got personal experience because, you've talked about how your parents have had to deal with the church office building as people who have authored some very popular books, that you've had experience with friends and family there and so on and so forth. Tell us what you got. There's lots of people that think just like you think, bro, and they need representation in this conversation as well.
Yeah, okay, so I'll make two comments pretty quick. First of all, I really don't think we can assume that Tim didn't know this was coming. In fact, I would assume the opposite. And this goes back to kind of the experience that I and friends and family have had. When you come in close contact with, the Q15, they're very, very sensitive about how any perception of using their name, of using their reputation. And so they keep a very, very close eye on that. Now, one of two things is true here. Either the allegation is true, the central allegation, the only concrete allegation, which is that Tim Ballard was using President Ballard's name for personal gain. If that's true, he has heard about this before, period. Now, if it's not true, we got a whole bunch of problems because it means the official statement has something that's objectively false in it. But if we're going to give this official statement the benefit of the doubt, there's no way this is the first time that Tim has heard about this. There's no way this blindsided him. There's no way he didn't know. This has come up before. It has to have. I can't know that for certain, but I have a very high degree of confidence based on everything I know.
So I want to steel man your argument here. You basically said, look, I've dealt with church PR before, especially church PR that has to do with the apostles. And let me tell you, they run a super tight ship. There's no way, in my personal experience, that is pretty deep, that he did not see this coming. It's not just that
he didn't see it coming. I think if it's true that he has been using President Ballard's name for personal gain, he has been warned. He has had conversations about this, and he has been asked to stop.
Okay.
Like, there's a slight chance that they had no idea, and then all of a sudden they got a ton of evidence all at once. I just don't think that's very realistic. If it's the case that he's been using President Ballard's name for personal gain, he's had conversations about this, and he's been asked to stop.
Okay.
And that's and my thing is then I think that information needs to come out. The fact that it isn't coming out is leaving everyone wondering, well, who's telling the truth and who isn't? And it's sort of like, well, just trust us. We're the church leaders. And it's sort of like,
isn't that what we're supposed to do?
I in this sort of a situation, I don't know. Is that like we're making the assumption that the church has talked to him? He says that they haven't, and I'm curious to know, like, well, then just show it. Just if it's a public case, just produce the receipts.
Yeah.
Well, Nathaniel,
Okay, so-
I would also say, Nathaniel, in this case, I think that what you're saying, it makes all the sense in the world in most cases. The difference here is that you have tens of thousands of pages from the Davis County investigation that Vice is pulling from, and that is an information dump immediately to the church. They're coming through Vice probably, or the church may have corroborated this with directly with Davis County also. So there's this massive amount of knowledge by several people that are interviewed in an investigation, and it was thrown at them at once. So it is a little bit different than you might see typically.
That's possible, and I do think that's why the church was vague about morally unacceptable. I don't think it's because they're hinting at something specific. I think it's because enough information came at them to freak them out, and they just covered their bases, right? So that covers morally acceptable, but they were very specific about the allegation that he was using President Ballard's name. And the other thing I want to mention really quick, because I actually think this is a bigger point, is that this is not about church discipline. So, like, church discipline has a very specific purpose. The point of church discipline is to help a sinner. That's what it's for, right? The beneficiary of a church discipline is the person who's called before the council, and it's to provide them with the opportunity to repent and the opportunity to continue in their progression. And maybe they have to go through disfellowship first. Maybe they have to be excommunicated. We don't know. But the whole point of church discipline is to help the person. What we're seeing from the church right now in this statement has nothing to do with church discipline, right? So it's really a bad idea to confuse these things. And I've heard early on in the conversation, like, well, why didn't this come through his stake president or through his bishop? That's the totally wrong paradigm. It has nothing to do with anything. This isn't an allegation of sin that needs to be handled through church discipline for Tim Ballard's immortal soul. Maybe that is also going on, but if it is, it's private. We don't know about it. This is about the church drawing a line and saying this person does not represent us. And that is not about discipline. That is about making a public statement of who can and cannot speak for the church. Doug Anderson can. It's his job.
The minute
Tim Ballard can't.
the minute you bring up morality, it absolutely is about sin. When you're saying, when a church is saying you have done things that are morally unacceptable, there's no way the 17 million people in the church hearing about this are going to assume it has nothing to do with morality.
Would have brought that up at all if that was the only accusation, right? So we don't know if they would have had a statement at all if that was the only accusation. The reason they had to make a statement was because he's been out there saying, I speak for President Ballard. President Ballard's got my back. They have to address that.
Hold on.
Allegedly, he went on record and said, no, I haven't done that, right? So again, these are all accusations being thrown about, and before we scarlet letter a man and his family and say you deserve this, we should
that's
have some
not fair
concrete
because the scarlet
information.
lettering is not about what the church did. It's about how the members react to it. If people are bullying his kids at school and you're blaming that on the church, that's not right.
Well,
because the problem is the people who are bullying his kids. If you are going and bullying some kid because their dad was accused of doing something, that's not a problem for the person who made the accusation. That's a problem for you, the person doing the bullying.
Well,
So you're trying to
Nathaniel, they know
it
exactly what they're doing. The wording that they're putting in there, they know exactly the implications. Right?
I don't know why you're
just
saying that
say-
because
they
I don't
know
even know
what that
those
implies.
implications are. I don't
They
even know what
the
that
reaction
implies.
is going to be.
You
One
don't
at a
think
time.
I don't think they're thinking the reaction is going to be that Tim Ballard's kids are going to get made fun of at school, right? Like, I think Nathaniel's making a fair point here.
Well, you don't think
But-
that puts a target on his back in a huge social setting when the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says this person is a betrayer and has done things morally unacceptable. You don't think any of the people in that church office building said, is this going to put a target on their back socially? Well, is this one of the most famous men in the country at this time?
'Kay.
There's no way they didn't think that.
Like,
Okay,
I
I'm
would not-
bridging
I
this
mean,
gap. Hold on, guys.
convey-
Hold on,
you-
Jacob. I'm bridging
Okay.
this gap. I think both of you are right. Now, Nathaniel is correct that, look, it's not the church's job to measure the implications of how mean society is going to be if you call somebody out for sin. All right? The church's job is to be a straight line that we measure against. Okay, that's why we call it the standard works. So their job isn't to measure those implications. However, we would like to think that a 15-year veteran making a statement like this, or a possibly 30-year veteran of being an apostle, understanding the celebrity implications of the person they're talking about, might be a little bit more in the know as to the potential ramifications of a high-profile statement like this, and take that into consideration.
Well, and
Now,
Carden,
I have a
real
super
quick.
chat to tie in to
Yeah, get
this
the 3
portion.
super chats, Brad, and then we'll go to you, Jacob, and
And
then we'll
then-
go to
Okay,
Greg.
and then I gotta run. I actually have to help put kids down.
Okay,
so get
fine.
through it.
Okay.
Wimp.
Do you need to do that before we do the super chats? Just
No,
for your
Let me
final
let me do
statement?
this. Let me just make my statement real
Cool.
quick.
Okay.
My point is this: you could say the things that Nathaniel wants to be said, like, he doesn't represent us. Okay, you can simply say that this guy doesn't represent us, and there are many allegations against him that we want to investigate and we don't know about. But ultimately, this man does not speak for the church. You don't have to call him a betrayer and say he's morally unacceptable. Like, this statement had teeth to it. And that's the part that we're all kind of like, whoa. And then when it comes out after that there are these, sexual misconduct allegations and things like that, you just, like, at the very least, this was a, like, sloppy, ugly statement that the church released.
Okay.
With that, I got to roll.
Go put your kids to bed before Nathaniel
I'll
can
try and get
defend
back
himself.
on this
You're
afterwards.
running away before Nathaniel can defend himself like a coward.
I know he's gonna
And
he's gonna smack me down. I
know we
really
gotta get to the
because I
super-
wanted to be here for Nathaniel, so I'm gonna see if I can get back. I just gotta get
Nathaniel,
one of
do you
them
need to-
bed.
I know we got to
Respond
get
to
to
that
the super
directly,
chats.
or should we go to the super chats?
I mean, I do think it's important to consider that there might not have been a lot of time here, right? And so
Yeah.
you guys are kind of like, well, they could have written a better thing. Yeah, probably if they had 3 or 4 days. But if they had to, and I don't know, I have no insight into exactly what happened. But if we're talking, hey, you guys have a couple hours and then the story runs, oh, by the way, you've got to get signed off from an apostle. Good luck.
Okay, really
Where-
fast.
I have a couple of
where's-
friends
Okay,
Where's
Brittany.
the grace
who work in the
from
media
us?
suggesting that was probably how it went down.
Okay, now hold on,
Now-
Nathaniel. I'm going to let Brad read these super chats, but I want you to be thinking of this answer before he reads those super chats. What pressure of time was the church under? Vice doesn't dictate how it doesn't have control over them, and they're under no obligation before Tim Ballard announces his Senate run. These
I got
people
my
don't
reply, but
lord
I gotta
over
wait.
them.
I gotta wait. Yeah. So go
Okay,
ahead.
fine. Brad,
Okay,
read the
cool.
super chats.
So this is an important thing for us to be considering. It's disappeared now, so I'm going to just give it my best shot. It's from Luke Hansen. He said, hey, I'm sure that every media outlet out there is looking for the people who are saying Tim Ballard told them that Elder Ballard was behind him, backing him on this, right? I think there's going to be a lot of people in the media looking for people to back up that accusation. So we'll see in the next couple weeks if that actually did happen or not, right?
And that's been a big
was,
frustration of mine, is there is no smoking gun. Before, like, if he's supposedly going out and name dropping Elder Ballard so often and name dropping the church and OUR so often, with how many firesides this guy gives on camera, with how many talks and speeches this guy gives, there's going to be somebody who would come forward and be like, yeah, at a fundraiser, he told
me. If they're getting Davis County investigation documents, they can get some screen recordings on YouTube far easier. And the fact that those are not
really
listed in those Vice articles, I'm sorry.
Unless Tim is a total doofus, he's not going to say this stuff on video. He's not going to say this stuff in public. He's going to save this for really high dollar donors. And it's not just about like preserving his own plausible deniability. It's like, if you're going to be like, hey, President Ballard's behind this, you're not going to do that in a big open space without people all around you. You're going to invite somebody into your study. You're going to be like, hey, don't tell people this. Shh, this is quiet. But guess what? President Ballard personally agreed with everything I said. So this idea that, well, we went out and we watched the recordings and we don't.
So if there's no recordings, it should be in writing, right? I mean, there clearly would be some paper trail of him doing this in writing.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Well,
they could. It would
otherwise
be
it's just
trivial.
hearsay.
Okay,
no,
one at a
not.
time.
The person that he told, Tim Ballard told Jack Smith, whatever, I made a name up. Jack Smith's like, wow, that sounds really weird. Jack Smith turns around. He's well connected. The reason he heard the story is because he's a billionaire, whatever. He goes to church office buildings. Maybe he goes directly to President Ballard. He's like, guess what? Tim Ballard just told me. He just told me that you are the one who personally prayed for revelation about all his plans and signed off on everything. Is that true? So no, it is not necessarily hearsay. He could,
but that is the definition of hearsay.
No.
That's
what
three
Nathaniel
people
is
removed, and it's also an entire new situation of three people removed we've created in hopes that these allegations have to be accurate.
I think you're
I'm
both
saying
bringing
if
up
the
valid
person
points,
who literally heard the words from Tim Ballard's mouth turns around and says that directly to President Ballard, you can't call that third hand. That's first hand.
Okay, and that would be assuming that it did happen, but we don't have
and
evidence
that's
of
who
that.
I think Luke Hansen was saying. Hopefully the media is able to either verify that some of those people are out there or not within the next couple weeks.
Okay, Brad,
right?
Brittany, say your piece, and then Brad's got super chats.
Okay, what I find so ridiculous is this. I find it ridiculous that if I go out and have an affair, sorry, Cardin, then I'm going to go through a disciplinary council, okay? But if I use an apostle's name, I'm going to be worldwide publicly humiliated. And that seems really weird to me, that a sin would be kept secret, local, concise. But if I speak against or wrongly against an apostle, I'm going to be humiliated on a worldwide scale.
It's the most ego-protecting thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It is the most ego-protecting. Like, hey, don't use my name's more important than, like, it's unthinkable to me.
It's weird.
It's not their name. It's the church's name. And who's the church named after? They have a sacred obligation to protect the institution of the church. This isn't President Ballard protecting his ego. This is President Ballard fulfilling his obligation in the mantle he holds.
But where's
someone else will hold after him?
The statement should have said Jesus. Instead, they said Elder Ballard. He used his name wrongly.
Right. But nobody cares about Elder Ballard because he's Elder Ballard. They care about Elder Ballard because of his authority.
No. So hold on. Now, I'm the referee here. Don't make me use it. You know what I'm saying? But I would say, Nathaniel, I agree with you. If the allegations are true, okay, then this is just the fulfillment of a sacred duty. Doug Anderson did everything correctly. M. Russell Ballard did everything correctly. And, we can all go home. At the same time, I have to now realize, gosh, is there a flaw in this system? I think it's flawed if it's insinuating their sin. I think it should have gone through the channels of the priesthood, because morally reprehensible behavior, I don't see anything that you could call it other than
By the
sin.
way,
well, hold on, let me finish, okay? And also, at the end of the day, I have to counterbalance what you say about, like, look, it's Christ's church and this is their holy duty. I don't think these people are infallible, because I've also fielded calls from people that frustratingly will not go on the record, but I know that they've received, oh gosh, how do I say this without outing these people? They have been in the car when both Ballards have been speaking, And apparently Elder Ballard would forget that his name was Tim and not Tom, and that his wife's name wasn't Kathy, was actually Catherine, and couldn't remember even at the beginning of at the end of the conversation something that was happening in the beginning, and that he's become heavily reliant upon staff in his older age. And there was a kerfuffle a couple of years ago where, without his consent, as in Elder Ballard's consent, some of those staffers removed Tim Ballard's cell phone number from his cell phone, which would be a kind of a rogue operative, a rogue bureaucrat who doesn't like their association operating on behalf of hopefully dissolving that association. So when I hear stories from people I trust that have been in the car when both the Ballards are talking, and then this person tells me, look, sometimes there's a lot of anti-MAGA animus in the church office building, especially amongst the paid bureaucrat class, and they do have influence, albeit small, in certain scenarios. I have to balance your, loyalty to that system being inspired with the fact that I know there's been operatives who, from people I've trusted, have had firsthand experience with them doing things that I would consider unethical.
And
so,
I mean, I just got to point out that this is exactly what the progressives have been saying for the last 10 years, right? The church does things they don't like, and they start banging the drum of prophetic fallibility.
No, but that's not true. No,
yes.
That's COB fallibility.
No, you're specifically accusing President Ballard of being mentally unfit for his calling, and I'm really uncomfortable with that.
Okay, well,
I think that's undermining the authority of the general authorities. And even if it's true, I have no idea. I have no knowledge.
No, you're
about
putting
this.
words in my mouth. I never said he was unfit. I said,
well, if he's having these memory lapses, and if it's the same thing as Biden, right? You're basically describing him as President Biden. He can't really remember things. He's not really in control of his faculties. If
Biden could improve his mental state to be as good as Ballard's, I'd be fine with Biden. All right. And secondly, that's not me whistleblowing on the mental state of Ballard being unfit to do his role. I think the spirit quickeneth a man. That's me saying, I think there's people who are abusing their position as assistants to him who are taking advantage of the situation. And these are not priesthood holders that hold keys over a stewardship with revelation and inspiration for that stewardship. They're paid employees who have been, letting a political animus affect decisions that have bigger ramifications than them in their little position. So I'm calling into question not M. Russell Ballard. I think he's a great guy. Our church has a unique problem. The higher you get up in the priesthood, I think in normal organizations, the guys on top are the most detached. The guys on top are in the top of the ivory tower. Our church is the opposite. Our Q15 are wildly in touch with the people more so than other organizations. And our bishops are wildly in touch with people more so than other organizations. I think we have a problem with a bureaucratically progressive and politically moderate church office building that was designed to be an assistant to the priesthood, now becoming an influencer on the priesthood in key moments that have...
Schrute. Taking too much power is what Cardin's saying.
Exactly.
I want to comment, by the way, on...
we've got to read some super chats before they disappear, and then let's get back to Kwaku's comment.
Okay,
we got Desiree Mayfield. Vice is not a credible source. They bent this story. Definitely agree with that. Next one up, we have...
Oh, Jacob's back. Good.
Spencer Marsh. Here's my bid for Ward Radio to keep kicking butt and for Brad to bring back his Book of Mormon videos beard. It was too long. Now, Danny Gray, and Kwaku, maybe write this question down to answer it when we get through these. Kwaku, is there any hint that Doug Anderson might have been taken over by an alien? Your thoughts? Maybe don't write that one down.
Yeah, he's a lizard person. Church office lizard person. Okay, keep going.
I'm sorry I spoke too soon. And then Fred Flintstone, to comment that the church is being radio silent, I say it's worse. They're being Ward radio silent.
Oh,
he paid for that comment.
Doug, come and clear your name. They're dousing you online, and you might be innocent.
He paid for that comment. He paid for a dad pun. So I want.
We do have another. a Latter-day Saint on fire. If it is so important to denounce Tim, then it should be the president himself of the church who makes the formal statement, not the media.
Well, the president can't do everything. Like, come on,
Yeah,
there's
that,
a reason
I think
why
is
we.
maybe too high of an expectation.
Yeah.
And then another, are we really sure that a spouse ruse or whatever couldn't have turned salacious and deceptive at any point in Ballard's career?
Yeah, we veered off that topic. We'll get back to it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that one's from Spencer Marsh. And then Michael Hutchings says the FBI saves more kids than Tim Ballard. I'd love to see where those stats are. Jonah Barnes threw out, the church is radio silent, yes, but so is the media. What are the details of the accusations? All we hear are vagaries, and Nathaniel, libel by insinuation is still awful.
Okay.
So, insinuation focus. And then Stephen Diamond, this is why we need Christ. The accuser is involved and creating contention. Just listen from Christ in the Americas to Fall of the Nephites.
And I will say this before you guys can continue. I appreciate the conversation here. I appreciate the Nathaniel Givenses of this world. I've become a friend with him over the past couple of years. And I think it's wholly noble, his desire to be loyal to our covenants, to make sure that we're not, speaking evil of the Lord's anointed and our church leaders, and we're following the covenant path. And I think that's a wholly noble effort. At the same time, I totally respect and love my friend Kwaku, who's like, we need to pursue truth. It's all circumscribed in one great whole. So we need to pursue it at all costs and let it guide our course. These are two noble goals that don't need to be mutually exclusive. And I think the way that they are is when we think that they are two camps of thought. I really think that it is possible to investigate our ethics in how we deal with our membership, okay? So that we are doing it as ethically as possible and that we are improving our systems of communication so they reflect what the Savior would do if he were in the situation and we're guiding a 60 million person church here in person. We know that he is revelatorily, which is an awesome word I just made up right now, okay? But if you were literally physically standing here in person, we want to make sure that that he would be doing it as we are doing it. And so the way I bridge the gap oftentimes between Kwaku and Nathaniel is I say, just like the commandments say, honor thy father and mother, and our father and mother are not perfect people. If we were to ever, quote, investigate, in air quotes, a happening such as how Tim Ballard was treated in the media over the past 72 hours, I think we can honor and sustain our church leaders by doing that very, very, very carefully and as sustaining as possible, giving as much grace to all parties involved as possible. And that's why I've never been comfortable saying, hey, Doug Anderson's a progmo that's gone off the rails like Twitter wants to lambast him as. And I'm not willing to say, oh yeah, Russell M. Nelson needs to go emeritus because he's dogging on my boy Tim. Tim is flawless. I'm not content with any of that. I believe that the truth is somewhere in the middle and that all views need to be considered before a decision is made. So,
okay, so
hit it.
I got to say, okay.
Oh,
so,
and sorry, before you talk, Kwaku, Nathaniel, this is something I thought of in the car. A lot of people were very angry, including some people in your camp. I saw some of the comments in your Twitter feed. You know what I'm saying? About some of the stuff Kwaku said today. And calling him disloyal or just like a progmo or, if you hold the mirror up to Kwaku, you'll just see John DeLynn or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I am just like I am not willing to criticize the apostles because they don't get paid enough for the crap they do. And church leadership is nothing but a thankless job from bishop all the way up to prophet. Okay. I'm not comfortable calling into question some of Kwaku's inquiries here because I can't think of anybody in this feed besides me and Brad who's paid a bigger price in cancellation for standing up for his beliefs and the brethren and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints than Kwaku has. His methodologies and his vocabulary are oftentimes robust and not the way I would phrase things, but he has paid a price, and I would never call into question his loyalty to the organization because you've never been hit by a cancel culture mob, bro. Brad and me, boy, we have. Jacob, a little bit, but he's got a bro that's a Navy SEAL, so, he just sends him over there. You know what I'm saying?
Say really quickly about that, though.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common thing to watch people who really take the hard hits, and it's hard to take those hard hits without it hardening you. So like I have mad respect for all the crap that you guys have had to deal with, and I haven't, and I hope I don't have to. I don't want to. I don't look forward to that. And that gets a lot of respect for me, and it gets a lot of grace from me. But not even talking about you guys at all. It's so common that you see somebody who gets hit by a cancel culture mob and it radicalizes them. So just the fact that you've had to take a lot of hits, it doesn't mean that you're more accurate. It just doesn't, because sometimes taking those hits, it pushes people to radicalize even further and to have you.
Okay, I gotta speak. I've got to speak. I've been holding my tongue for 20 minutes, and this is all the context is no longer here. Okay, so we've been operating this whole thing right now under a couple suppositions that I think we need to address. So one supposition we've got to address is there's a binary here that I'm not sure actually exists. Yeah. I don't think so earlier we said, or Nathaniel, you said what the statement the statement is justified because we must protect the good name of the church. And if these allegations are true,
I don't think he was
right.
saying
I'll let
that.
you keep going, but that's not actually my case.
Or I'll try to be more precise. The allegations that Tim Ballard was using M. Russell Ballard's name to further his own personal agenda is offensive to the good name of the church and to the office
that's
and
still not
authority
it
of the
at all.
apostles.
No. I think what he's saying is he believes that Tim Ballard actually did something because in his experience, the church doesn't engage in this kind of behavior unless somebody actually did something, and isn't at our job as sustaining members to sustain the actions of the brethren.
Is that what you're saying?
It's a little bit different. What I'm saying is if you go out there and you say President Ballard told me to do this, then you're hijacking the authority of the church, and the church has to stop you from committing that sin. Right. But that's not because they're offended. It's not to protect somebody's good name. It's to prevent somebody from practicing priestcraft and from deceiving other people. Okay. Right. Because if it's true, and I don't know for sure that it is, but if it's true that that's what Tim Ballard was doing, he was about to do that for a Senate campaign. So we got two problems happening here. First is just that he's out there and he's deceiving people. And the only organization that can stop that deception is the church. And that's what it's doing. It's not punishing him. It's not protecting its name. It's not protecting its reputation. It's stopping somebody from misusing the church.
Okay. But couldn't they just say he doesn't represent the church? Like,
maybe
they did a lot more than
maybe, but like there's two things. It's like, should the church have said it at all, and how should they have said it?
Well, hold on. I'm going to toss to Greg here. Greg hasn't talked in a long time, and I'll let you guys get it out of your system. But I think the problem though is that you're assuming, Nathaniel, that it was true that he actually was using the name of the church in order to fundraise. And I think the point that Greg Matsen brought up earlier is that a lot of members of the church have seen some balls dropped in previous press releases where the church has corroborated negative things said about members of the church that were found to be factually false, such as the BYU N-word volleyball hoax. I mean, the BYU team and the fan base was accused of the most heinous racial slander that could happen. I followed
that from the beginning. I know what you're talking
about. Yeah, that could happen at the NCAA. And if you were to say, hey, hold on a second, the athletic director of BYU, a man who's been set apart to make sure that the BYU program runs.
No. But this statement cited President Ballard. That's what makes it different. It wasn't some church public official doing their best.
If he's a public official that's gone rogue, he could cite anybody he wanted. He could cite Russell M. Nelson. He could cite Jesus.
Almost everybody here has already agreed this was not a rogue statement. I don't think that's a viable.
Yeah, it's not a rogue statement. By the way, Nathaniel, you used the phrase "good name of the church" in your initial, so that's why
I may have misspoken. Like, I'm not trying to blame anybody for misunderstanding. I just wanted a chance to explain what my actual concern.
I guess so. My question is the precedent for this. Like, I'm the guy looking at this saying, okay, I need to find a scriptural precedent for these actions. So the reason why you have a lot of people in my camp who are a little shocked by this is if we're saying, look, allegedly he did a mystery thing. We still don't know what it is. We only have accusations coming from the internet. Where is the actual Christ-like precedent for the brethren to publicly condemn someone in this way? for treading on their name, or however you'd like to phrase it. Like, where actually is Jesus Christ in this? Because when we were earlier talking about, if this isn't the church's job isn't to weather the mob. The church's job is to spread out the information. I completely disagree. If this is the Church of Jesus Christ was killed by the mob. Joseph Smith was killed by the mob. If this is his church, it absolutely is their job. Absolutely is their a prerogative to make sure the mob is not acting in the way it's been acting. So I think we're operating under suppositions I totally disagree with, and I don't see the scripture or the gospel in them.
Okay, so Brad, catch us up on Super Chats, and then Greg,
Cool.
you're going to tell me your thoughts, and then Jacob, you're going to tell me your thoughts. Then we're all going to agree how beautiful Brittany is, and in 15 minutes, we're got to go, all right? So, Brad, catch us up on the Super Chats, brother.
All right. Wendy says, could this be an attempt to get the church to react during general conference to gauge whether somebody from the outside can control what is covered during general conference?
Well, I
An
think
interesting thought.
eyes of the media are indeed watching, and that might be an unfortunate byproduct, at least of the BYU volleyball. I mean, if the BYU volleyball hoax taught us anything, it's that the cancel mob scares the administration of BYU into agreeing with any kind of false premise that ESPN's willing to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Brad, keep going.
Okay, we got another from Carolyn Wright Gaines Music. This just does not pass the smell test. Can we just take a step back and give the grace where we need to? Pray for the right outcome and mistakes, if any were made, with all parties involved. Should we not be guided by the Spirit here? That's a good thing to, I think, take a step back and try to have the Spirit be able to guide us on this.
Look, I demand others deal full of the Spirit and quietly and softly and slowly with me, but I am fully fine lambasting somebody else with my not completely formed suppositions as just written law. So, no, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
All right. Next up, we have Lonnie Hansen. Hopefully you all won't become September 6 or 7. Thanks for your courage to try to find the truth.
Dude, not Nathaniel. He wrote a book. He wrote a book that's in Deseret Book, baby. He's in he's in rarefied air.
So did Tim Ballard.
Oh,
Yeah, so did Tim Ballard.
Next, 1843 James. Thanks for covering this, guys. Rex Good says, "Hey Brad, you skipped my super chat. I can't find his going back. So if someone can find that,
I'll look for it.
and
Keep
then
going.
read it. It's blocking me from scrolling back that far.
Okay.
I guess I need to be an admin now. This is a lot of chats we're getting today.
Yeah.
Now, Nateamus, if I'm pronouncing that right, my bias is usually inclined toward giving the benefit to the ones that everyone tells me to hate. Yeah, that's a reasonable bias, the kind of thing that makes me think, hey, Salt Lake Tribune is telling me that this person is bad. I'm going to think they're probably
And not just
good.
the Salt Lake Tribune, Fox 13, Salt Lake Tribune, as well as Vice News. I mean, if there were an unholy trinity in the state of Utah, it's probably it, right?
And Deseret News. So let's
Come on, they're always
Just to
Johnny come
balance it a
lately.
little.
They're always
Now,
Johnny come lately.
Mosiah
No.
Olvera says the OUR statement seems like Tim was fired, Nathaniel. So someone was saying that. Forrest Schultz to Greg says, will you please pick up that beautiful guitar and play us a sweet lick when it's time to send us off? Cleanse all of our souls.
Wait, who said what about a sweet lick?
I don't
on
know
a
about the
guitar?
cleansing of the souls if I did that. but-
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. And then we have another... Just skipped around for me.
Okay, Brian Meacham, thanks for the super chat. Silver Eagle 1776 says, handlers are a thing. People have no clue they are being handled and manipulated. I think that's true about the CIA. I don't know if handler is the right word I'd use for the people that are in the church office building.
I think it's a good word.
But I think
Ask
it's
your
good.
handler.
By the way, we got a lot of people saying, let Greg speak.
Yeah. Well, he's just so polite, you know? And
You know, I had a
We
lot of
finally
words
caught
early
up on
on,
super
so-
chats. So
Greg is
Just a
charging
couple
his
things
energy.
again. There's something you look at all these different pieces. You've got the church's statement and what's going on with that. You've got Vice. You've got the Davis County investigation, which is really where the knowledge is sprouting out from.
mhm.
And then you've got Tim Ballard and his reaction. And there's something in here where typically we would be able to put a puzzle together and see the picture that's not fitting. And I don't know exactly what that is yet. I mean, is there more information that the church has above and beyond? Because again, Vice is going to find the worst stuff in those documents. They're going to find the worst things, and then they're going to make allegations, and usually not name their sources, if you notice that. But the church may know more than even Vice. The church might know more things than Vice does, and maybe that they're saying, this is harsh and we know that, but this is what it's got to be.
It's a possibility.
But there's something there which is why this is so fascinating, why so many people are watching this and looking at these things, because something somewhere doesn't fit in this.
And I think a lot of people are justified in their emotional reaction to this on both sides. I think a lot of people that say, hey, whenever Vice News, the Salt Lake Tribune, and all of the anti-Mormon, ex-Mormon Twitter accounts agree on something, I know I need to wholesale reject it. It's evil and it's wrong. And the Tim Ballard situation, you know what, kind of falls into that category right now. At the same token, I know that there's a lot of people that say, hey, I have always been dealt with, and I kind of fit into this camp in some regards. I'm like a hybrid between all four of you guys right here. But I've always been dealt with extremely ethically by the church, except for some really crappy rogue individuals that I recognize had a personal animus against me. The general institution of the church has been nothing but very ethical with me, more than I would get in any other organization remotely as large. Okay. So it doesn't ring true to me that they would actually call somebody morally unacceptable in some of their actions, unless, holy smoke, they did something. So, I mean, I'm open to both being true, and that's why I'm wearing the referee uniform. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, I do think at the end of the day, we have 5 options ahead of us. Is Mitt Romney literally, when he says, I don't want Mike Lee, well, allegedly says, I don't want Mike Lee and MAGA Tim Ballard representing the state of Utah, and I don't think that he's worthy of, or these people are, MAGA is worthy of the visage of the church. You know what? And I've influenced now a statement against him as basically a pseudo-political hit job. If that's true, that's heinous and abuse of power over there. If it's rogue operator, that's heinous and it's abuse of power over there. If it's incompetence, it's an abuse of power through the back door over there. There's a lot of options that would get cleared up by an official statement from the church, I feel, or further evidence that I'm hoping will come, because the way it is right now, people can really only make impulsive and tribal decisions.
Gordon, let me if I can follow up on what I was saying.
Yes, then Jacob.
And this piece is not missing. There's one area here also. We're not looking at the precedent here with Tim Ballard, right, and the media. Again, if you go early on, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you're going to see a lot of media against Tim Ballard. And that includes within the church and influencers within the church. If you go back to even just recently, July 4th, The Sound of Freedom premieres. And how did the media treat it? What happened with that? That's something that we should take into consideration, right? July 19th, Trump puts a private screening on of Sound of Freedom and brings Tim Ballard and others there, right? Then Trump is on Tim Ballard's podcast on July 31st that has 1.4 million views. Last week, Tim Ballard, it's leaked that Tim Ballard may run for the Senate seat. And then a couple days later, the Vice article comes out. Is there a coincidence there with all of that? That is a pattern. When I try to find truth, I'm looking for patterns. There's a pattern all the way through that, right? I'm not saying, again, I don't know if the allegations are true or they're not, but you have to take that with more than a grain of salt. Understand how this has been treated, how his organization and he have been treated for years.
Okay, Jacob, then Nathaniel.
So I was just going to say that, and Nathaniel's brought this up, and I think that he is making the right point there. The key thing that they're bringing up is that he is using Elder Ballard's name to promote himself. He's acting like he's some sort of a representative of Elder Ballard and or the church, and he's using that to his personal advantage. But the details matter. Like, we have to remember, He's published by Deseret Book. The church website has articles talking about him. He's got pictures with him and Elder Ballard together. Elder Ballard set apart his son to go on a mission. If he goes in a thing and he mentions like, oh, you're a member of the church, like, oh, yada, yada. And he like, says, yeah, I'm pretty well connected. I'm even friends with Elder Ballard at some fundraising event. Is that what we're talking about? Or let's go another route. That he literally got up there and said, I was with Elder Ballard, and we both prayed and saw Jesus, and he told me and Elder Ballard to have all of you give us $100,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are two very different things. And so when you say that he used Elder Ballard's name to further himself, well, what does that mean? Like, to what do, like, the details in this matter. If you're going to call someone a betrayer, call their behavior morally unacceptable, and do all of this assuming that he's not just blatantly out there lying to us because Tim said, no, the church has not talked to me at all about this. And Nathaniel thinks that he's lying about that. It is like, that's a big deal, And so we have to, there's just a lot of smoke around this. And what we need is clarity, not partisanship. And this is the last point I'll make, and then I'll shut up, I swear. In all of this, everyone sees the tribalism playing out. Here's the problem. When we start looking at the world through the lens of right and left, instead of through the lens of right and wrong, that's where the problem comes in. The more people use the language of, oh, the right, oh, the left, oh, the progmos, oh, the conservative members, oh, the Romney people, and the more we start talking about the tribes that we're a part of, instead of talking about, was this right or was this wrong? What is the truth? Disciples don't care about right and left. They care about right and wrong. They care about what's true. And I think we need to stop with the partisanship, and we need to be disciples of Jesus Christ, and we need to find out what's true.
Okay, awesome. Nathaniel, before Nathaniel speaks, if you haven't had a chance to like this stream yet, please like it. Let the algorithms know that you like what you see. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider a subscription to Ward Radio. Let this be the chance that we have to earn your subscription here on Utah. Also, we're coming up. We're going to be leaving here, looks like pretty soon, within 6 or 7 minutes. So if you guys have any last burning questions, anything you'd like us to address, please make sure that you send us a super chat. We do our best to read all of the super chats on air. Nathaniel, go. You have to unmute yourself too.
I've got to catch us up on some super chats quick before we get to Nathaniel.
Okay.
Catherine McDavid says, Lori and Chad Daybell used the church's name to make money, killed 4 people, including 2 children, and they didn't even get a morally unacceptable. I think they actually did get a statement against them, but I don't think they were using the church's name in that.
Well, they also weren't running for Congress, which is obviously what red flagged Tim Ballard for Vice.
They also left the church and started their own. So it's not like they're using the...
it's a bit of a different situation. Paul Chambers, I don't know about this whole thing. It kind of sounds like Ballard is experiencing a struggle session a la Mao and the Chinese Communist Party.
I've never been through a struggle session, so I don't know what they were, but hey, he's struggling for sure. So yeah.
No, this isn't a struggle session. That's somebody who's just been reading a lot of anti-woke stuff and is misapplying it.
Oh, savage.
Oh.
Struggle sessions are from the Cultural Revolution. It's when they brought somebody out and they had all the people like accuse them of their crimes publicly. Do we have a mob of people attacking Tim? If we do, they should stop, because they shouldn't do that.
I think
that's
there's
definitely
Do we have a mob of people attacking Tim?
That's
of
not
course.
what the church did. Are we talking about the church, or are we going to start talking about random other people? Because if you want to start talking about random other people who happen to be members of the church, we can do that. But I thought the topic here was the church's statement.
Okay, there are plenty of random people who are currently members of the church who wish they weren't, and identify with the secularists. We won't call them the colloquial term for them, all right? But there's plenty of people that are attacking Tim Ballard right now, and to say that there's not a cancel mob coming after him, I think is naive.
I'm not saying that.
There's a cancel mob that was sent. Well, it wasn't sent by the church, but the church's statement did spark that cancel mob. 100%.
And by the way, I do have to say something I think all of us would agree on here in this is that I think we can argue about where on the spectrum loyalty and inquisition lies as a member, but can all of us agree that Vice News is a slanderous hit piece?
Yes.
that really I think we would do well just to like limit whatever interaction we have with those guys, and let's
For sure.
like let's robustly all of us agree that we can just say 99% of what Vice News has to say ever about anybody in the church is just garbage. You know what I'm saying? I just I kind of feel that way. So anyway, Nathaniel. Oh,
We
are
got
we done
two
with
more
super,
super
two more
chats we
super
gotta
chats? Hit it.
Rex Good. He says there was very little mention of the Savior and the atonement. I quote Eliza R. Snow, "Jesus' love is all my theme." And I think maybe that's in reference to the church's statement. And then another, Lynn D. What about D&C 4288? And if thy brother or sister offend thee, thou shalt take him or her between him or her and thee alone. And if he or she confess, thou shalt be reconciled. I have been wondering about that one, honestly.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, bro?
I feel like, I don't know, even if all of the allegations about Tim Ballard are true, I do think that it wasn't the right move to release a statement like this to Vice. I don't think that it's like such a condemnable thing that like, oh, now no one should ever trust the church ever. But I do think that it wasn't the right move to make, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and everybody is cheating on this. Part of the reason why I wore the referee uniform is I forgot to put it in the Discord. But everybody that hates us, all right, all the anti-Mormon sites, they're loving this. Like, I've never seen John DeLynn make more community posts in my life. And congratulations, Jacob Hansen. You were mentioned by name today on his live stream.
What can I say? Quick note on that for anyone who did see it. At the time that the tweet that he referenced, I referenced a tweet by Peggy Fletcher Stack. At that time, the source was not known, and she had posted something about that. And then John DeLynn saw that and was like, oh, Jacob Hansen was like, oh, she's posting things without a source, and turns out there is a source. But it was like, at that time, there wasn't. But
oh, yes.
Anyway.
Will he lie and manipulate in order to dunk on members of the church? Absolutely. And also, if you look at the graphic he put up at the beginning, trying to say, look, I'm really ethical about this, and I just want to make sure, look, he's got family involved, and he does all these cute things. He's a total crybaby, and all the anti-Mormon ex-Mormons, they always show their true colors, because the last bullet point that I took a screenshot of was, Tim did not act alone. You know what I'm saying? After all of his bullet points about, oh, he's got kids and we should be nice and these are just allegations and all this other stuff that everyone wants to hear, there's, of course, the little bit that they got to slip in about how Tim did not act alone. And I'm sure it resulted in some kind of monologue about how this is actually the official culture of the church, how they enable abusers, and how this and how that, and horrible X and horrible Y. And it is just literally how they operate. It's like, Vice News Light. Anyway, Greg, we got 5 minutes left.
We can't skip Nathaniel, though. I butted him out.
Nathaniel, then Greg.
Nathaniel, then Greg.
All right, I'll try to go quick on just some notes I was taking. First, Cwic wants examples of stuff like this happening in the scriptures. I mean, maybe he should reread the story of Ananias and Sapphira and see how the church handles things. And that's not even the Old Testament; that's the New Testament. It's not directly applicable, but like, how applicable do you really need to get? And look, I wanna like actually give a little bit of grace here. I think that whenever you're dealing with human institutions, things can get sharp edged in ways that are really hard to grapple with. And to be personal for a moment, it's a lot easier for me to live my life far, far away from Salt Lake City and the church establishment, because it's hard to keep your testimony when you're interacting with a human institution. All human institutions, and the church is a human institution insofar as we're talking about the people that you're going to come in contact with. All human institutions, they have certain incentives and certain behaviors from the group that are hard, that are alienating, and that are often painful, and that are often not good. So I do want to just express some sympathy for, like, dealing with any institution can be really, really rough. Okay, so I just want to put that out there, but that doesn't mean that, like, there's no examples from the scriptures of church leaders being very harsh. There are, and so it's
aren't Ananias and Sapphira the people that didn't pay to the bishop's storehouse, basically?
And
God,
what happened to them?
Struck them down at the feet of Peter, and then Peter said, like, "Hey, Ananias, see just what happened to Sapphira? It's gonna happen to you too, dog. Drop dead. Boom." You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying.
People do wonder that why the church is so hard maybe on Tim Ballard.
Yeah. So
But
let me
not
Yeah, I
on
won't
other
lie.
people that
I don't
are
think
out
those
there.
stories have anything to do with each other. But
I think it was a great analogy. Just keep going.
let me keep going here, right? All right. So one of the other questions is like, how do we know exactly what Tim Ballard was saying? Like, how do we know if he was just like, hey, President Ballard is my friend, whatever, or whether he was actually saying, look, President Ballard has authorized me to do this. I don't know how we make that call, but I don't think we need to wait for evidence. If we trust the one person who would be able to make that call would be President Ballard. If President Ballard has heard from people that he trusts and he feels confident in making that statement, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And this is what comes down to my fundamental concern with kind of how we're talking about some of this stuff, is that you can always find reasons to be suspicious of the church that you can rationalize with yourself. And it's like, oh, I don't distrust the leaders. It's just the people around the leaders. That is like step one of any rebellion in any institution throughout all of human history.
Yeah, we got to read the Charge of the Light Brigade, baby.
You never question the leader first. You always question the people around the leader. It's exactly what Prigozhin was doing. If you guys are paying any attention to the most famous coup in recent history, it was the Russian Prigozhin. He was like, I don't question Putin. Putin is a great leader, but the generals advising him, they're not doing good. It's the generals. It's the generals. And yeah, eventually he actually mutinied against Putin himself, right? And so there's I'm worried that there's a similar thing here, because as painful as all human institutions are, the Lord has chosen to have a human institution as part of the plan of salvation, and we have to figure out how we're going to interact with it and how we're going to support the church. I don't worship the church. I don't even like the church because I don't like human institutions. But my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ set this institution up, and he's asked me to sustain the leaders. And I think there is an awful lot of benefit of the doubt that we need to deploy while we're waiting to hear greater evidence. And I think we also need to treat the church differently than we treat other human institutions. The church isn't a bank. It's not a government. It's not a club, right? It's something different. It's something separate. And if we're going to be members of that church, and if we're going to believe that this is really Jesus Christ's institution, no matter how messed up the people running it are, then there should be a different set of rules and a different set of attitudes that we have when it comes to evaluating the behaviors of this church. And that's kind of what I'm worried about here.
I just kind of
that's the whole reason I joined
this, and look,
this conversation.
We maybe we're just, our ingredients are different. I think Jesus Christ,
say the least.
Jesus Christ is perfect, and he's not going to allow a couple podcasters to destroy his church. But I am seeing in the depths of my soul, the mob attack a man and his family, and if there's only a couple people vocally defending that man, I want to be one of them, because the church and the apostles, they're big boys. They don't need all of us to defend them. They have
you might need to defend them. I'm not worried that you're going to break the church. I'm worried you might break yourself. Right?
No,
and
no,
if you
I'm
want
not
to go out there, and if you want to go out there and defend Tim Ballard, you do that. Like,
I'm not even defending Tim Ballard. I have said repeatedly, we don't know. I'm saying before we join this mob, when I see Desnats and Progmos both saying, yeah, he's bad, let's go at him, I'm taking a step back saying, wait, we're talking about a human being here. This is a very rare thing to happen where the church publicly condemns one person. And
that's
to
not
say
what you
that
wrote
we
in your
need
Medium
to
post. If your Medium post sounded like your Medium post was full of anger and condemnation.
Well, hold on.
You read it at 2 a.m. angry, so you assume that's what my tone was.
Hold on.
I am too old to be awake at 2 a.m. What are you talking about?
Okay,
like
hold
30.
on. Hold on, Kwaku.
I'm 42, bro.
We can rehash whether or not Kwaku was angry, all right, and whether or not that was righteous indignation.
And the audience has to read the post to even understand.
I invite Kwaku and Nathaniel. This can be a whole other podcast, a different day that I think is valuable. What we should do right now before we got to go, because we got a hard out coming up here, is a thank you to everybody. Really fast, what I'm going to do is we don't have any super chats left to read, right?
We
Ren?
got 2.
Okay, we're going to read the super chats, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Greg, Jacob, Nathaniel, and Brad, all you guys give your socials. Let everybody know how they can reach you. Let them know what your podcasts are. We're going to plug them. If you got any projects you're working on, you can plug them, the whole 9 yards. So super chats, and then we're going to go clockwise from Greg around this little Zoom meeting we got going on, and say goodbye to everybody. Brad, hit it.
Awesome. Catherine McDavid says the Daybells didn't start their own church, plan things in the temple. Chad didn't get excommunicated until 2021, but I get it, not running for Congress. So she's kind of agreeing there a little bit, I think. Porch Time says, I can't make heads or tails of anything beyond y'all are good peeps and Vice is still hot garbage.
Whoop,
Thank you,
whoop.
Porch Time. we agree. Vice is a pretty dubious source. And then a last one just popped in as I was reading. Thank you, BWE1, for just popping us a super chat there. And T Brown 3117. Regardless if Tim Ballard is guilty or not, his kids suffer regardless. And they haven't done anything wrong. And I think we can all agree, everyone on this panel is totally in agreement. No one should be attacking Tim Ballard's kids. Anyone who thinks something happened with Tim Ballard, even if you think he did something wrong, that doesn't justify going after his kids at all. So I think we would all
doesn't even justify
agree.
going after him. Like,
What?
That doesn't even justify going after him.
Yeah,
Leave
exactly.
his kids alone, leave him alone, leave his wife alone. This isn't for us to be. We don't need mob justice here. Maybe I even agree with Kwaku on that.
Hey, look, Kwaku, you're making friends everywhere, bro. You're just the most amicable. It's the smile. It's the smile. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe let's go.
Okay,
I have
well,
too many
gotta go.
thoughts, so we gotta end it.
We go. So anyway, Greg, you're a stud. Final thoughts. Where can people find you? Where's your book, by the way? Give us the whole 9 yards.
Book's still coming, in the works.
Cool.
All I want to summarize here, that's not even a summary. It's what we're missing on this ultimately is, I know the discussion is a hot discussion, and it's like the statement from the church and Tim Ballard's response and what's guilty and what are we missing and everything else. But what's missing from the conversation, and I think should always be there, is keep in mind whether the church responded well or not, right? And I know we all look at that and focus on that, but Vice News wants to take the church down. Keep that in mind. This whole thing with Tim Ballard for them is a secondary issue from attacking the church. And so, we're looking at these two sides hitting each other, but really, let's not forget that Vice News, their goal, their greatest glory would be to somehow majorly affect the church, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're trying to do. They're attacking the church. They're associating Tim. They're going after Tim Ballard, associating him with Elder Ballard, and trying to pull everything down together. That is their approach. That's what they're doing. Let's not forget that the media in this discussion, most media, is after the church. That's their ultimate goal. Outside of that, YouTube. You can find me at Cwic Media on YouTube.
All right, awesome, Jacob. Yo, you got to unmute yourself, dog. Hey, there we go.
Sorry, guys. So just as a last thought, I swear 1 second, just to say the truth matters in this, you guys. Like, our loyalty shouldn't be to any political party. It shouldn't even be towards any institution. It should be towards the truth. Nothing should ever be a higher value of the truth. And at the end of the day, in this situation, I hope we can figure out what the truth is, because the truth will clarify all of this and put it to bed. So I'm Jacob Hansen, Thoughtful Faith. You can check me out on YouTube. Just search for Thoughtful Faith. Just released a video on why we have so much contention, I think, here in the church today. And I don't think it's something a lot of people think about. So check it out on Thoughtful Faith on YouTube. Just search that and check out my latest video.
All right, Brad, and then Nathaniel. Oh, wait, no, Nathaniel, because I was going clockwise. So, yeah, Nathaniel, hit us, dog.
Yeah, I just want to say I've been monitoring like the chat a little bit, and a lot of folks are like picking sides and rooting for one versus the other. Like, I got nothing but love for everybody here, even Kwaku. Like, we can have these heated discussions, and things can get a little. We got disagreements. We got real disagreements. But if y'all think that we can build Zion without, like, by solving all of our disagreements first, like, we're going to agree on everything and then we're going to build Zion, that's not how it's going to work. Like, we have to figure out how to build Zion while we're disagreeing with people. And so if we're worried that people are laughing at us, like, based on this, like, conversation right here, maybe there's some crazy stuff going on in the socials. Can't speak to that. But based on this conversation now, like, this is a heated conversation among, people who love each other, I hope, and who have honored the same covenants. And we're all after, like, the same things. And the fact that we've got heated disagreement, who cares? We can still love each other and we can disagree. I got no problems.
You know what?
You can find me on Twitter at Nathaniel Givens. It's just my name.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Look for the Ukraine flag.
Yeah, look for your Ukraine flag. Can you just repeat that really fast? There's times where things are said and they just hit me. Like, I really just like do boom, spiritual prompting to just have you repeat that, where you said we're not going to build Zion getting together first. What was that again?
wait for everybody to agree on everything and then start to build Zion. That's not how we're going to get to unity. Because if we wait for everybody to agree and then start building Zion, we're never going to start. And if you think about that, it means that we're going to have to build Zion with people we don't agree with. So how are we going to become one heart and one mind with people we don't agree with? We're going to have to learn to have conversations like this where people are disagreeing sharply sometimes, but we still have love in our hearts for each other. We walk away, we're friends. We work together, we worship together, we go to the same church. Like we gotta be able to practice loving people we disagree with.
Okay.
That's the only way we build Zion.
I asked for the phrase, not the whole monologue, Nathaniel. But
Sorry,
no,
man.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally just kidding with you, bro. You're a stud, man. You're a stud.
It was good, Nathaniel. We liked it.
Yeah, the last time that happened to me also was I love Jacob Hansen's phrase that Zion is emergent. And you were saying something almost exactly like that, Nathaniel. I love that. I'm going to clip that. That's going to be a highlight that comes out of this live stream. Finally, Brad, take it away, my man.
Yeah, so I think what it all comes down to is we need to not get caught up in thinking that all of these people are just like avatars for the groups that they represent. Even in our conversations with one another online, Tim Ballard's still a person, Doug Anderson's still a person. We need to treat people that way. And I really agree with what Jacob was saying on we need to just look for what's true. Because I think we know that we don't have all the facts yet. We've got pieces of what's going on. And I think it's important for us to keep looking to see what happened. Because who knows? We could find out every allegation against Tim Ballard is right? Maybe that's down the line. We could find out they're all wrong. We just don't know that yet. So I think that as we try to understand what's going on, we can do so charitably. And yeah, that's pretty much my take with
And where
this.
can people find you,
guess.
dog? You and your beautiful beard and your super cool book that you just wrote, bro. You just wrote Dragon Thief.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them all about it.
I guess my name's Brad Whitbeck. You can find me on Instagram at Braderico, Braderico. And then if you guys are just sick of all of this random reality, my wife and I just wrote a fantasy book called Dragon Thief. If you want to find that, it's on Amazon and Audible. It's the Skystone Chronicles Book 1, Dragon Thief. And you can get away from all of this garbage that's here in reality, just have some fun in fantasy for a minute, and then come back with a slightly better heart to deal with all of this. And hey, maybe we'll have some new information.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, bro, you didn't even plug your book. Put up your freaking book. You know, Kwaku's got Brad's book right there.
I personally read Dragon Thief. I love the part where the gingerbread man is fighting the fairy goblins, and they have to. Al Qaeda comes in with who's the guy who says "You shall not pass"?
I
Darth
sense
Vader?
an anachronism. I sense an anachronism.
Yeah, when Darth Vader says "You shall not pass" at Hogwarts, it was just a wonderful scene.
Yeah,
I take back every nice thing I ever said about Kwaku.
Okay. So and then by the way, I was actually looking down in my book box here, but I've given away about 3 or 4 copies of your book now, Nathaniel. I've literally bought like 5 or 6 of these dumb things. Oh, I shouldn't say dumb things. But you've got it, Jacob. You've got it right there. You got to put it up. See, Jacob bought your book, and it's a hardcover too, bro. I've paid the whole like $15.95 or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate that.
So, you got to plug your book. What's it called, bro? Tell them what it's called.
Yeah, me and my dad wrote a book, Into the Headwinds. It's about why faith is hard now, but why it's always been hard. We're kind of excited. It was published by Erdman's. That's a mainstream Protestant press. As far as we know, we're the first Mormons they published. Those are the guys that used to publish C.S. Lewis and stuff. So we were pretty psyched to get out there for a mainstream Christian audience as well as fellow Latter-day Saints.
All right, rock
and
on.
unlike Kwaku, I actually have read Nathaniel's book,
Yeah.
and I have many favorite parts.
Was it the dwarves or was it the mages that you totally dug? You know? Okay,
Yes.
and then finally, Brittany, dude, should people be following you on Boho Birdie on Insta?
No,
on
I don't want people following me. Thanks.
Yeah.
No.
You're like, no, I don't want these people following me. Forget them.
I'm boring. I don't have a book. I'm just a mom. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Just so you know. Oh, Brad.
One last super chat here.
Hit it. One last super chat.
Brad, do you have a date set for when book 2 will come out? Yeah, it's coming out October 3rd. So anyone
Awesome.
who has read the first, the second will be out right soon.
Okay, awesome. So anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with us, guys. Before you go, please make sure that you like this stream, okay? Make sure that if you want to hear more about this, get more updates, more details, we're following this as best we can. We're giving you all of the referee Reader's Digest version of everything, so you can make informed decisions. If we can earn your subscription now, please.
17K subscribers.
Let us. Yep, we just passed
Oh, wow.
17K today. Yeah, that was before the stream started. Let's see if it goes up after this. If we can earn your subscription, please let us earn your subscription. We'll hang out in the chat for another minute or two after we go. But until then, until another video drops tomorrow, thanks so much for hanging out with us. It's been real. It's been fun. As